Don, most neuroscientists and many philosophers in the physicalist tradition would say consciousness is one of the most interesting things there are in human existence, but it is really an epiphenomena, something that as floats on the top of the wave. It's the steam from an engine. It is not. It is the result of something else that we may enjoy, but it has really no great purpose, even in human life, much less in the universe. I know you disagree with that, but let's work through what different scientists, philosophers think about consciousness, and give me your opinion of it.
So there is a view called epiphenomenalism that says that the brain causes consciousness, but consciousness does nothing. It's like the shimmering that does nothing off of an object. So the brain causes it, but consciousness doesn't do anything at all. Now the problem with that is that if consciousness doesn't do anything, then it can't evolve, because you can only evolve things that make a difference to fitness. So if consciousness literally does nothing for you, then it can't affect your fitness, and therefore it can't be changed by natural
That's
selection.
not necessarily true. And if consciousness were riding along on something else and had some relationship to that something else, which did have a fitness a power, then consciousness could be there because it's related to something else that had fitness.
Right. So you could have some kind of brain function that did have some fitness value that gave rise to the consciousness.
Right.
If your doctrine as a philosopher, though, is that consciousness that it gives off literally does nothing, then you could have the same fitness value without the consciousness.
Yes, you could. Absolutely. That's consistent.
And so, and that means that the consciousness could actually change however you wish.
Yeah,
it could change its character however you wish, and the functional properties would be the same. And that's the sense in which it couldn't evolve by natural selection. You couldn't shape the details of the consciousness,
yes,
of the consciousness itself.
That's fair.
So that's one interesting point. But so many philosophers then say, okay, consciousness has to do something. The question is, what does it do? What would evolution? Why would evolution give us consciousness? It's got to do something to help our fitness. One of the standard kinds of directions that people go is they say it's really there for solving problems that are novel. So when everything is going along and everything's as expected and all of your current strategies work, then you don't really have to think too hard about things and life goes on. But suppose you run into a problem you've never run into before and you have to stop and think about it for a while. Then some people say that's where consciousness comes in. It allows you to take all this data in, reassess it, and then start to learn to do something new.
Process in the moment.
A process in the moment. So that's the selection advantage that it gives you for novel situations. The problem with that is it's very easy to write computer programs that can stop and do the same thing, right? That you give the computer a problem and you tell the computer in the program to stop and take in all these variables and process them and come up with something different. There's no magic needed. There's no need for this thing called consciousness to do that. We can write very nice algorithms, thank you, that will do that just fine. So that's a concrete example. And what's happened is there have been several different proposals about what consciousness evolved for, what does it do for us. In every single case, you can always write a program to do the same thing without needing consciousness. Of course, you can take the reductive functionalist point of view. Well, if you write those programs, they have consciousness. But most people in the field
Or you can take the eliminative philosophical view, therefore consciousness doesn't exist, and we've created something that's unreal.
There are some who would take that point of view. For example, Dan Dennett, at least in some of his moods, will say there's no such thing. And so you can take that point of view. Most people, though, will, even his colleagues will tease him and pinch him and say, "Do you feel that?" Right? I mean, we all seem to intuitively know that we have conscious experiences. So saying that there aren't any conscious experiences seems like just throwing up our hands and giving up on the problem. So no one's been able to come up with a function that consciousness would do that it would be selected for by evolution. That's a remarkable state of affairs.
And so your claim would be that there is no purpose that consciousness seems to have been evolved for.
That's right. There doesn't seem to be, well, all the proposals we've had so far, you can always do the same function without requiring to bring in consciousness. The magic of consciousness doesn't seem to be needed.
Right. So if I allow you to agree with that, and then and say all the proposals now are that way, and all the proposals will be that way, and you're not going to eliminate consciousness,
Right.
right?
Right.
Where does that drive you?
Well, that certainly fits in with a different point of view that says that consciousness isn't a product of evolution. Oh, I should back off. You could say that consciousness is what they call a hopeful monster, right? So it doesn't do anything. It didn't evolve by natural selection. We have a genetic mutation that somehow that just caused consciousness to emerge. It doesn't do anything for us, and it'll probably disappear too because it doesn't do anything. So it's what could be called a hopeful monster. So that's a position you could take. I mean, I don't find it plausible, but I'm just laying out the logical territory. But I think a more plausible direction, one that I'm pursuing, is to say let's step back and ask: is the physical world the fundamental reality, or is consciousness the fundamental reality?
Now that seems like an enormous leap from what seems to be not trivial data, but data that we're just experimenting on. We're thinking about how to explain consciousness and justify it in evolution, and this is a process.
Yes.
It seems like you have just trying to avoid a few pebbles have jumped off the cliff.
Exactly. So if my only argument was that since we can't figure out why consciousness evolved and what it was for, that therefore we should just throw in the towel in physicalism, then I would agree with you. That's way too big a leap. So there's several other strands of evidence that lead me to make this admittedly a big leap. I mean, first, the evidence from quantum mechanics, like interpretations of quantum mechanics that suggest that properties such as position, momentum, spin, and so forth don't exist except in the act of observation. That's actually the standard interpretation of quantum mechanics, the Copenhagen interpretation, and also the more sophisticated modern cubist or quantum Bayesian approaches suggest that.
But that is not also not a standard for many physicists who think that that's taking quantum mechanics way beyond what it can justify.
Absolutely. There are many who take decoherence interpretations of quantum mechanics who try to make it an entirely physicalist interpretation. So I would agree that there's no data that forces.
And what else gives you that justification besides quantum mechanics?
Well, another justification would be simply that when I actually do evolutionary game models of perception, I find that it's the case that our perceptions are probably not true, that natural selection drives true perceptions to extinction. And that also suggests that maybe the physical world from our perceptions isn't the final reality.
So you're willing to take this very big leap, but you think you have some justification to do it.
That's exactly right. And the one thing that keeps me honest is I'm taking the leap, but I'm forcing myself to get a mathematically rigorous theory out of it that gives me back quantum mechanics as we know and love it today as the end result. If I don't do that, then I will be the first to say I'm wrong.
Well, I'm a skeptic, and I'm waiting to see what you do.
Thank you.